Hey, Rob from Order 42 here, and today we're doing something a little different. We're gonna be checking out some South Korean fare off of Netflix. So we've got two series and a movie. I gotta say, ever since I saw Train to Busan, I've been fascinated by I guess the entertainment coming out of South Korea. So yeah, I felt like this was a good chance to check it all out. And I will just say, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We've always got something going on: news, reviews, interviews. I mean, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess without further ado, let's get into it. First up, we've got Sweet Home, which is a single season available at least currently. And it's Hyun, a loner high school student who lost his entire family in a terrible accident, is forced to leave his home and has to face a new reality where monsters are trying to wipe out all of humanity. Now he must fight against all odds to try and race against the clock to save what is left of the human race before it's too late. I have to say, Sweet Home is one of those where it's a strange one because I was really kind of into it, like right at the beginning, and then things started getting weird, And when the things started getting weird, I don't know. It was just strange. It's a the I guess the effects are really strange for me. The effects are there's a lot of practical effects, special effects done in camera. That was some really interesting stuff, and some of the tricks they pulled were actually pretty neat. But then all this weird CG and almost stop motion kind of animation that went in there, it was just a little strange for me. I will say that character wise, it's a little strange because there's so many characters that are just introduced and they just show up out of nowhere. Even some characters, they're introduced or they're there for a couple of episodes and sort of like they're just there, and then they're not there for like 2 or 3, 4 episodes. And there was one character in particular where toward the end of it, I was looking it up. I was looking it up on like Wikipedia and stuff. I was like, what happened to this character? Did I miss something? Because suddenly these two characters that were almost like together almost the entire show, they're not there. So what happened to that character? I don't even know. And then they just showed up, at the second to last episode. So it was like, it's really strange, and it's almost too much because you can't really keep track of them, and I think that's a little jarring. And I will also say, performance wise, it's pretty good, but there is a lot of crying, almost, a little too much. Like there's so much that happens to these characters and so much that has happened because there's a lot of flashbacks in the show. I just feel like it's a lot, and the pace overall is pretty uneven. I mean, there's a lot of action at the beginning of the series, and a lot of movement and just forward momentum, and then kind of in the middle there, it just kind of stalls, and I found my interest sort of waning. I was getting a little I don't know, it just wasn't working for me. And then toward the end, it ramps back up and I was kind of enjoying it again. And then I felt myself really just like, okay, wrap it up. Let's just this is all there's a lot of slow motion. There's a lot of crying, and it's just like, come on. Let's move it along. I will also say that plot-wise, I felt like the story was moving towards some sort of conclusion, but then it ends in sort of a way that's like, oh, there's more to the story, and it's just like, okay, it actually irritated me, to the point where I was like, okay, so we don't get to find out. All right, yeah, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. As far as positive goes, as I said, I think the performances were good. I did feel like the humor was a little uneven in a way, and where it's almost like there's this really shocking thing that happens, and then there's some humor, and it felt very uneven. But I'm also wondering if that's a cultural thing. Like, I'm wondering if a lot of their shows are like that in South Korea, but it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt strange to me. And then I will also say, in the positives, the effects were, I mean, seriously, like I said, it was a bit jarring at first, this sort of mix between CG and practical, but I actually really thought it was well done. I mean, there was a lot of really effective stuff where, just kind of like, ooh, gosh. And it was like shockingly brutal at times. So, if you've got a weak stomach, I would say, you may not want to watch it. I mean, overall, though, I think it just suffers from a glut of characters and almost that appearance of treading water. You know what I'm saying? It's like by the end of it, it was kind of like, okay, there was a lot of filler in there, you know, and I don't know. I felt that that was one of those things where the pacing was just so off for me. And I will say too, if you're sensitive to talks of suicide, it's all over the show. I mean, it's almost like a main plot point in a way. So be careful of that. I mean, overall, I would give the show a 2.5 out of 4. It's not something that I it's not something I'd watch again, and I have to be honest, I probably won't watch the second season if there is one. And now we've got Space Sweepers, and this one is a movie set in the year 2092 and follows the crew of a space junk collector ship called the Victory. When they discover a humanoid robot named Dorothy that's known to be a weapon of mass destruction, they get involved in a risky business deal. This one, I gotta say, visually is just, it's shockingly good. Like I was sort of taken aback to the point where I was actually disengaging from the story just to look at how beautiful the imagery was. I mean, it's really really good stuff, and even musically, I got a lot of Blade Runner kind of inspiration. You know, sort of vibe from it. I really really enjoyed that. The use of the CG in this show is, it really is top notch, and they have to be commended. The artistry has to be commended here because it is really really beautiful. One of the things, one kind of a story element, is almost a Hitchhiker's Guide sort of way, where there's I don't know if you've seen Hitchhiker's Guide, but the babblefish, you know, that you put in your ear and you're able to understand any language. Well, there's sort of a piece of technology sort of like that in this. And what that means is that there's a lot of different languages being spoken through this show. Some with subtitles, some in there. You know, if it's English, of course. You know, I'm in America, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of there wasn't any subtitles on Netflix for the English, because there were some people that were a little hard to understand. So I really had to pay attention, and then it was kind of weird because I kept engaging with the dialogue and then disengaging to read, and then, you know what I mean, it was a little strange. A very famous British actor, Richard Armitage, who played Thorin in The Hobbit, he's in the show, or in the movie, and I was sort of like, I was surprised. I was like, what, Richard Armitage, what's Thorin doing here? You know what I mean? It was strange. Overall, I felt like he's basically the villain of the story, and that's really all he is. There's not a whole lot of depth to his character. He's there to speak almost in this very charming way, but then be very angry and bad, and just bad. It was, I don't know. He was just okay. I will say that there's a familiar trope here of sort of, the ship full of misfits. It felt very Firefly to me in that respect. And even though I enjoyed all of the characters, it's weird how I guess the character introductions are there almost too late. Like, I've already kind of come to like a couple of the characters, then we get to see a bit of their backstory, which felt very strange, and sort of, it felt just messy a little bit. I think one of the things that this movie really kind of falters on is that there's almost too much lore and kind of learning the world. I felt like the way that they did it, it felt very, it didn't feel like an easy watch. It felt a little messy to me at times. There's so much plot, there's so much lore to learn about, what's going on, the state of the world and space, I guess. It's just a lot, and I almost felt like characters took a back seat to the rest of that. I will say, by the end of the movie, my feelings for the movie were kind of all over the place, because it felt almost like a rush to the finish, kind of thing. And then also there's a bit of strangeness when it comes to family members in peril, and then something bad happens, and we're just meant to be like, okay, it's okay. And it was weird. It was a strange thing. And again, there's these bad things that happen, and then there's a little quip, and it's like, what? I don't feel, it doesn't feel like that's the right time to be. I don't know. It was a strange thing. Maybe that's a cultural thing too. You know, it's like it may be one thing that I'm just don't I don't understand. But to me it felt wrong. It felt like that was a bad choice. Overall, I would say that I was entertained, for the most part. I mean, the whole thing, I mean, I really kind of enjoyed it. I mean, visually, like I said, visually very very amazed by the visuals in this movie. I just, like I said, I felt like there was so much lore and so much story thrown at you that the characters almost felt like throwaway characters, and then toward the end you get some backstory and some meaning, and you're meant to be like, okay, I guess I can see that. Okay, that's why this character is this way or whatever. But by that time, I didn't really care. It was like the plot had moved so far along that the character introductions, it's what it felt like. Introductions toward the end of the movie. I felt like that was a problem. I guess editing wise, I don't know. I don't know what they could have done differently, but it just didn't feel right to me. Even though there are these issues, the characters ended up really, really. I really liked them. I really liked the style of I guess the lore and the stuff. Now that I've kind of got a kind of a grounding of what's going on, I really did enjoy that, and I would even enjoy maybe a sort of a spin-off series where the crew kind of and the ship they go off into and get into adventures and stuff, and each episode is sort of its own thing. That would be interesting at this point, but I don't know if that's in the works or not. Like I said, overall, I enjoyed it. I would probably give it like a 3 out of 4 stars. I mean, I do think it's recommended. If you do have Netflix, check it out. I mean, it's on Netflix. So, yeah. Now, my final review today is for Kingdom, and I have to say, this one was definitely the best of these three. While strange rumors about their ill king grip a kingdom, the crown prince becomes the country's only hope against a mysterious plague overtaking the land. This actually takes place during Korea's Joseon period, 3 years after the Japanese invasions of Korea. This is 16th century Korea. And I have to say, after the first few episodes, I actually took a break from the show just so I could sort of read up on Korean history because I don't know much about it. I really was sort of fascinated by it, and the visuals, visually, it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's one of those things where it got me so interested in what I guess the culture was like, and the sort of the politics were like. I mean, it almost reminded me of sort of a lot of these samurai movies that I'm so fond of, but it was obviously different. And I really, really found myself just super intrigued by it. And it was just, again, just jaw dropping visuals. I mean, I was trying to figure out, I mean, what is this like every single episode? There's just these moments that are just so gorgeous that you just have to stop and go, wow. And then sort of parallel that with this like jaw-droppingly shocking, brutal violence. I mean, as we're talking about basically zombies, right? That's really what happens. This plague breaks out, and there are zombies, and it is it is awesome. And I just, like I said, everything about this, I was really digging it. Character wise, you could probably say, yeah, you've got the criminal that's on the run, but he's falsely accused, and then you've got the sort of almost bumbling clown of a sidekick, but he also can hold his own, sort of. I mean, you know what I mean? There's some familiar tropes here, sure. There's the well-meaning doctor, and then there's the doctor that's sort of we don't know what his, I mean, there's a lot of tropes here, you could say. But I mean, like I said, I was just so swept up into it and just fell in love with everything about it that I was in. I was pretty much in from minute one, and I loved every second of this two season series so far. Especially contrasting this with, say, Sweet Home. Nothing felt overbloated. Nothing felt forced. Nothing felt shoehorned in. Everything, there was an ease to the storytelling to me. there was nothing that seemed out of place. It was like, well, we kind of need to explain things a little bit here, so let's explain it. But then we get right back to this character drama and this character sort of interplay between, different people. I mean, it was just so effortlessly done. I was so impressed by that. I will say there's some strange things that happen, just plot wise at the beginning of the series, that I was a little like, what is that? Like, what? Why would that be okay? Like, at all? Like, this decision is messed up. This is weird, but it more than makes up for it. There's once you get over the idea that, okay, so that's how the whole thing kind of started. That's okay. Once you get past that, it's a really really great show. I mean, I just, like I said, there's, you even got the cool badass character that barely says anything. You know what I mean? That you there's a lot of, like I said, familiar tropes here, but I just really really enjoyed the way that this thing unfolds, and was, really didn't give me any reason to dislike any of the characters that you're supposed to like, if that makes sense. There was nothing sort of out of place there. Now, like I said, this goes for 2 seasons, at least so far. And the way that it works is that these first 2 seasons almost feel like one big season, which is to its credit. I feel like it really worked well. And then toward the end, there is a sort of a wrapping up of sort of this storyline, and then it's sort of like a jumping off point to whatever's coming next. And I will say, I am down. Whatever they end up doing, I am so down for it. It is, like, by far one of my favorite things I've watched probably in the last 5 years when it comes to a series. I'm really, really interested to see where things go from here. I feel like Kingdom is one of the best things that you can watch on Netflix right now. So yeah, you should totally do that. I would give it a 3.5 out of 4. Like I said, there's some issues that I have with, but it's more about like, wow, that's a messed up thing for those characters to do. They don't seem that stupid and that weird, but okay. But other than that, it's a great show. I mean, gosh, just put it on mute and put it up, almost like a screensaver for your TV. It's beautiful stuff. So yeah, it's a great show. So yeah, Sweet Home, Space Sweepers, Kingdom, some great stuff, some fun stuff. Have you seen these? Or maybe it's something that you're gonna put on your to watch list. Let me know down below what you think about these, and hey, if you've got any suggestions for anything else that you think I should be watching. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about doing this show is when I get to hear from you guys about that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.